So everybody, my name is Matt. I go by the name Matt, and I've been programming, uh, writing codes maybe for last 10 years. And maybe it's in the environment of Ubuntu and PHP mainly. Although I have written some codes also in like jQuery, mostly HTML, also CSS, like design templates also. But mainly the programming consists of PHP programming. So, and in this video I will just talk about the journey and the concepts of learning programming myself. Ever since I was really young, I was looking at the computers, also playing some games. I think I was 12 at that point. I thought when I grow up, I will make such crazy websites. Although then I didn't know how to do it. And then there was the biggest mistake which I made then. I didn't Google it, how to do programming. I didn't YouTube it, although I didn't have any internet at that point. But still, the biggest mistake at that point, you just needed to ask and tell to yourself at that point, I want to do it now. I don't want to wait it, I want to do it now. So that was the biggest mistake I made, because once you write a couple of codes, you understand the logic behind it a little bit, and it's more easier to get into, and then you know the next questions. Okay, now how I want to do this, how I want to do this. And nowadays it's really easy to find the answers online, and especially if you have somebody to teach you, like a mentor, like a teacher, like a school, or like a person you know who is really good at it. If he teaches you, your overall learning process will be way faster. And the way I learned programming was actually a little off any standards that you would normally hear. In my case, it was from meditation. I started to ask myself, I want to learn programming, computer programming, to make websites, because I needed to make websites at that point. I owned a couple of companies, which that was when I was around 18 or 21, around that point, like 10 years ago. And at that point I just needed it, and I decided, okay, I will just learn it at this evening, at this night. I will just, sit down and don't go off the computer until I know it. And then at that point, something happened, like my head got dizzy, and instantly I just saw like code samples, and mostly what I got from that point was I understood the logics behind it, simple logics, which was necessary. And then I thought, okay, now I know how to do it. And then I just started copying some codes online and started putting my codes together. And the next morning I already had a website, a simple website, but still it was really quick. It was really quick jump into it. So the logic. So I will talk a little bit this in this video as a lesson video especially for beginners. What is the logic behind programming? Programming is basically, just lately I decided I want to learn also a little bit more about how does the actual CPU work, because I always had the question of how does the code know that whether if 0 is smaller than 1, or if 25 is greater than 5, for example. How does the computer simplify and knows the logic? Like it has a, so to speak, consciousness, the computer has. And it turned out, when I understood how the CPU works, the logics behind it, I would say I don't know exactly how it works, but the logics behind it, there was a nice video online, and I realized that it's actually binary code used in a mechanism way. So it's basically, first you have to learn the binary code, and then what are transistors and switches, and how can you actually use the transistors to make a simple calculation. And then it expands into a little bit memory, and then expands into tasks, what the CPU can do, check if something is greater or equals or smaller, or do mathematics. There are just some couple functions that the CPU can do, but with those simple functions, you can build up a huge logic, and the only thing what you need is using couple simple logics, like if, while, um, equals graders, and basically with only these two functions you can make a lot of codes. A lot of codes you can make with only two functions. If and while, it's also a for each loop, but with these two functions you can make a lot of things online. So I will just jump into a little bit. I'm searching whether a script has finished loading while I'm driving. So the logics mainly start by the overall logic of programming starts by actually I heard that C+ is the base programming language, and all of and from it arised I think the JavaScript was the oldest programming language, but I don't know actually. But I knew that most of the programming languages now, like PHP and Python and stuff like this, it's like a simplified or user-friendlier programming language, and both of them and all of them have little benefits, and some of them also have downsides, and some have them really good sides of usage in different environments or for different solutions. But anyways, the overall logic basically is reading some data from the hard drive or memory, calculating some data and saving the data back to the memory. And for this, mainly people use already free accessible database system called the MySQL. MySQL is a storage engine already installed on the Ubuntu, or you can just install it. All you need is a Ubuntu server. You can use also Ubuntu desktop version, or you can like for Windows versions. I think they had also some kind of a easy PHP and ML or something called these softwares. I don't know. I don't know in my head. If I can check them on my computer. I had one, and you can basically do PHP programming, and also you can do MySQL database. And also the next thing what you need is Apache web server access, but it's not necessary only if you want to make a website. So basically if you want to do some scripts, sometimes the front end is not that necessary. Sometimes you can easily handle without the front end, but in most of the cases people would use the front end, so that's why they would use also Apache 2 or Apache web server, which basically now consists of three components. One is the PHP environment, which basically is scripts that fill out certain tasks. The second is MySQL database, which basically means that you can use the PHP tasks to connect to the database, save some data to the database, read some data from the database, and then the web server is just because you want to use your server IP from any location in the world. Put in this IP or a domain name, if you have bought a domain name, so you can connect to your web server and you use some kind of admin panel, whatever the sort you want to have and you want to use. So three things: Apache web server. Okay, so four things. Ubuntu, the platform, Ubuntu server, PHP, MySQL, so PHP environment. But it comes together with Apache and MySQL. Sometimes this pack just comes together. So Ubuntu, MySQL, Apache, and this PHP platform. And then people mainly use PHP MyAdmin, which you can also install by apt line get space install space PHP MyAdmin later on, and then you have a PHP MyAdmin which you can easily manage your databases, create tables, create databases, create fields, insert data, delete data. You do all the stuff we can do. What can you basically do with a simple PHP script? But it's already made, so you can use it. So now that's all set up. The logic behind it is really simple. For example, imagine you have a website and you want to create a comment script, so users can write down a comment, leave some kind of a text, and then when they come back to the website, that text is visible. So basically what you need to do is two things. First thing you need to do, you need to use PHP and HTML code to make HTML is basically a code that makes a design. There are already some tags and everything in it, so you can have pretty much a form where you can write in text and post it. So PHP, then you need to connect to your MySQL server. Just use the command connect, and I will make it in the lesson videos later on. And then all you need to do is when a user puts in some text, he presses like comment now, he presses this button, and then the text is submitted back to the same script. The browser does it, and the script reads all the data that has been posted back to the script. If the data exists, then you can write in a MySQL function like save this data inside my MySQL database, inside this table, where like a user IP is this, the comment is this, and the date is this. Save it. You save it, the script saves it, and then what you can do later on is, after that code, put in that read from the same table, the same information, read from the same table, all comments that exist in the same table. You can read it, and you can put it out, output data, and the design and the layout and the text and the formatting, all is done by CSS and HTML tags. So basically, this is the simple logic of any beginner that who wants to enter the programming field. These are the simple logics, and all for this logic, what you need to do to make such a like a script, you need to MySQL connect. So all those four things which are called later, but just for the script but just for the script itself to be functional, you need to know only a few things. First of all is a function MySQL connect. You connect to MySQL, and then you can do all sorts of things. Then you need to get a function if. For example, if information has been posted to the same script. For example, if you open the page cleanly without any buttons submitted, there will be no information posted to the same script. But if you click the post function, the post button on the page, it will create the browser to reload the page, and the information that has been inputted, it will be posted to the same script. And then you can use the function if something has been posted, for example post text, then you make a function if it's true, if something has been posted, then use a function MySQL query insert it into the database. So that's like 3 functions by now. And then you need a function to like print out all those results from the database that have been already saved. Would be just lower in the code you can write, or in a different page you can write like show all comments, and you open a different script. You need to get also, if it's in the same script and you don't need MySQL connection anymore, but if it's in a new file, then you need also again to MySQL connect. Then you need MySQL query, which basically means select all information from that table. For example, table name comments. Get all information from the table comments. Then it will pull out an array of results, and then you need to put them into a while loop. So it means first get all the results, then put it in a while loop, and at each result do something. While there is a result, like first there would be comment number 1, comment number 2, comment number 3, and each of these loops until it's finished, the server will do something. For example, the server will put out, at this result, put out a new line, HTML code, and the text, and that's it. So basically at each result it will put out a new line and lower it with text. And if you're more advanced with designs, you can put like the field, the borders of the field, and everything. You can do it with CSS, but also you can write it inside the code. So anyway, when that's done, you have a fully functional like a script, like a text posting script. But the overall idea is not about actually the overall coding and programming stuff, it's not actually all about writing something that works. It's more about, because later on you will start writing codes with thousands of lines and maybe hundreds of lines and 10,000 lines, like I do like 10,000 lines sometimes, full of functions, and so it gets complicated. And the most important thing in programming is you need to find but mainly standardize overall grammatics. So basically you need to write it, format the code, make the logic that it's easy to read. For example, if you write a code and then after a month or so you need to edit it, and you have forgotten, you don't remember what was the code doing. You're like, it's a large code, and you need to read it through and try to understand what was the code doing. What was the code doing? You need to read the logics. Okay, now it connects. Okay, it waits for some post information. Then it sorts information. Okay, what is it doing here? And you need to concentrate and focus on what is the code doing. And you can simplify this to be more easily readable later on by making the script into chunks. Like sometimes I do like this. For example, if it's a large code, there is one function that does all the connection part to this server. So there's I make a one function. This function is connection, and inside the connection function there is like the passwords, the connection chosen database, the adjusted information just for this function. Now that it's connected, there is like function only showing the results. Meaning that show results function, and you create that function somewhere in the file or somewhere in a different file, or some also create classes, but it's a little different. The main idea is to get you into the simplified understanding for beginners of the programming itself. So you make a function that is just for connection, like one line, a single function. Then you make a function just to show results, also one line, and then you make a function if a post has happened, a function that saves results. And then overall, the main engine code of you that you have consists of nearly 5 lines. One is connect, then is if, then is a save, and then is a one-line read. Because when you write while loops and MySQL get the data, and then when you write echo the data, to show it in a designable format, it gets to like lines, maybe 100 lines easier. You can get just by one single function, by one single process that you want to just show the comment. It can get into 100 lines also. So you write a main engine with only a couple lines, and then okay, this saves, this reads, this connects line, and this shows the results. Everything is easily to be read and to understandable, and everything is already understood. Now you want to make sure that you want to edit only the design. You have the show results function, and then you open the function, which is maybe another file, or maybe in a save file. You just scroll it down, or you have included a file that consists of all those functions. And then you, in a way, you can completely edit it without any problem. You are completely focused only on this single function. And it comes much more easier in terms of if you want to show the same results on a different page, or use the connection also on a different page, on a different script. You just write in that function and everything is done. You don't need to copy the code in that script, and you don't need to. And this is one really, really important thing which you need to start programming is start using the functions. For a beginner, it's okay, no problem, but function is a specialized version to simplify your script. To make a function, you basically, when I would start teaching others to do programming, I would start instantly with the functions. Don't waste time. Start with the functions. Start with the functions. Learn the functions, and you can try both of them. See what fits you, but try to use functions as much as possible. Try to use them as much as possible. Sometimes I don't use functions. Just write a code inside. I don't need the functions, but it's really necessary for beginners to use the function. The function itself. So what a function means is a function is basically when you write a piece of code like show the results, you would write echo like a div tag, then you echo the text, and then you echo something else, and you echo something else, and maybe you fetch a result how many likes this comment has. You write another stuff inside the code, and it gets like in 100 lines or so, maybe more. But the function would be copy out that code in, write a simple line like function space the function name, like curly brackets, and post that code inside the function, and the function name, just put it somewhere in the script where you need it, and it will use everything which is inside that function. So that all chunk is moved in a different place. So it's like it's put it in a folder. The function basically you put it in a folders, and like routing, like splitting, like it's more easier. Also, some people use include function, but anyway, I'll try to pass this car. So, and the main things which I've learned from programming also in the past years is that speed is really important. The logic of the code and the speed of the code is really important. As a beginner, you just write something that works and you don't pay much attention to it. But when it gets down to like productivity, and when it gets down to like serious business, speed is really important. And speed, not in a sense that it really matters to get you, like you can load the script up as you made in 1 second or 10 seconds or 0.01 second or 0.5 seconds. 1 second and below for a mainly user would be okay. But the main thing is not about the second, how fast the page loads, but it's about how much work does the script do. Because sometimes you can write that basically the logic is really weak, and the server itself, although it finishes really fast, the server itself does tons of work. So it gets down to the logic, but I will talk about optimizing your scripts in a different video. But it can get to a really bad situation where, although it loads fast, but the script does tons of work, like reading from the hard drive continuously until the script finishes. So it still loads in 1 second, but when you start doing the same scripts like simultaneously 10 times, it can get to you 10 times slower or even more slower. So this is the next thing about optimization. So whenever you make a code, keep in mind that each function takes a sort of a time, and especially keep in mind those things which reads from the database and save to the database. Although maybe there is not much to do, but basically sometimes you would need to read like 1,000 results, or you need to save 1,000 results at a time while the one script reads, and you need to optimize it. And you need to keep in mind that the fastest component that can accelerate everything is the memory, the RAM cards, and the hugest slowdown is because of the hard drive. So the less you can make the codes for the server to use only RAM, the better. And don't do repeat functions over and over again. For example, sometimes there is the function called date. It's a stupid simple example, but you just keep in mind. For example, you have a while loop where you need to go through like 10,000 outputs, like 10,000 images or 10,000 calculations or some sort. And each of those calculations, a date is necessary, like the now date is necessary, and you maybe save it into to the server, to the MySQL server. You need maybe to save it. So 1,000 loops, or maybe 10,000 loops, and each of those loops you need to save something to the hard drive, like a date, the ID, maybe text, and maybe date. But imagine you have 10,000 of these. And then what you want to do is normally you will create in each of those loops, server please get the date by using the date function, and then you create this date as a variable, and then you save it into the database. But the thing is, you are using 10 times over and over again the date function if the date is in the loop. But if you take the date function outside of the loop just before the loop starts and put it like date here, use it as a variable, and then instantly insert in each loop the variable inside the table, so you don't need to call that function 10,000 times over and over again. And it's not about that it's extremely slower or extremely beneficial, but you need to keep in mind that this is really important. You will have lots of server downtimes, hangovers, problems if you do not optimize your scripts, if you do not think a little bit the logic, how much the server needs to do, and then use the date function before the loop, and it will be called only once. The function will be called once, and imagine you have 1 million reads to do, and it could slow down the script only by that single change. It can slow down your script maybe for 2 or 3 seconds, depending on the CPU or the script that you are doing. So then also there are different other things I want to talk about. An example, there was one thing I needed to optimize, one script, and that script was doing 2,000 while loops, and it was doing it around 8 seconds or so, and it was really long. The first thing I checked which function is taking most of the time. Which function is taking most of the time. So easily what you can do by doing this, like create a new script just for testing. Create a while loop that does 1.2 million loops, and put in just this one function with just like, for example, the date. Put in the date function and don't do anything, and call that script and see how fast it loads. You can put like a time counter on the top and on the bottom to start counting when the time loads, and when the script is finished, and you'll put out some seconds. And then you're like, okay, this script took me around 2 seconds to finish. And they're like, okay, how can I optimize? And you start thinking, and then you, okay, put this outside the loop, put it in a variable, and then check. And then 8 seconds turned down later into 6 seconds. And then the next thing which I noticed is a continue function. Is basically, there was a script, if something matches out of one of those loops, for example, look where date is larger than, where, for example, where the, let's say date is only 5 days old, or the current date of the saved result is only 5 days old, then do something. And so I decided to, like, okay, if the date is not the date I needed, just put in continue function, and it skips the loop, and then I got another 2 more seconds in advance. So basically 8 seconds turned out into 4 seconds instantly. So it's about, also, you have now more spare CPU usage, you have more faster the script. And there was a story from one of my friends. He told that he worked in a company as a programmer, and in that company they had a task to do optimization for other company for script optimization, and so it was something related with music, some kind of stuff. And they sent one guy to check out this, and he said that the script that was made was so illogical, and it took around the script to finish for like 30 minutes, like 30. And they optimized it in a way that it took less than 1 second to finish this script. So keep in mind how fast and how slow can you make scripts, and how important it is to do it. And large scripts make it into functional chunks, like chunks of data, chunks like folders with using the functions. So, and the next thing is errors are really common thing, and debugging is really a common thing. Whatever script you make, there will be definitely some errors. Whatever script you use or download on the internet, it will have definitely errors when you try to install it in your own platform. So error debugging is really important, and it's really easy to use. Whenever you load a script, you put in a function that says print out all errors, and the PHP pacer, which reads the PHP code, if there is an error, he will output an error. So it's when you especially at the beginner, learn to read those errors and watch those errors, because several times there will be like a grammar mistake you made, or something that you did that caused the script to die or to fail, and then you need an error debugging, and you need to check these errors. And sometimes the errors do not appear on the browser, and then you need to call that same function, the same script, using the command lines. You log into the server with the SSH terminal, and then you call the script using PHP, and the destination to the script, you just write in the PHP space a destination to the script, and it will do it there, and it will show all errors there. Even if the script has died on the browser and you don't see any errors, it will output errors there. So so this is the absolute beginning of the programming, and I believe it's year 2019, the beginning of 2019. I believe that computers shortly, in a few years, will get 10,000 times faster. Sorry, there was a car passing the car, a really difficult place. I meant 1,000 times faster, not 10,000 times faster, but 1,000 times faster. Because I think the next future is GPU programming and GPU-based servers. So a normal server nowadays has 12 cores. I'm using a 24-core server, and I'm planning to upgrade to 32 cores. And GPUs have 4,000 cores. And the logic and the usage of GPUs is way more better than the usage of classical CPUs. So I believe the future will strongly depend on the GPUs. So if you are in the field of exploring new technologies, I recommend strongly to go for the GPU programming as a suggestion, or the languages that are used by GPUs. I don't program GPUs. I've never actually tried. Also, I didn't have the chance, but I will do it definitely in the future. So anyway, if you have any questions about programming, you can write a comment. You can ask questions. I will make my own forum where it's like a sharing of scripts and mistakes and errors and debugging. I'll make my own forum, and then there we can chat and share. And I'm doing this mainly because when I started programming, I needed really much of assistance. I needed help, and it was difficult to get help. So now I can help others, and there are many things which I know by head that can I easily share and tell, because I remember most of the mistakes that I made, or the things I didn't know, so I can just share about them. So next time we will see in this video with the computer screens. So goodbye.